All right, we are live. So Bucky, you do the intro.
Awesome. Nice to see you again, Dallas. And thank you for your last conversation. I had some good feedback from some of my friends. Let's start it off with first, who we are, why we're here, some good news over the last week since we last talked, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, awesome. So obviously you have good news, so you go first.
Good news for me. I feel like our real estate company, I know our real estate company is definitely doing things here in the Minnesota market that's different than what is being done elsewhere. And the good news is conversations like this are leading to changes internally that long-term are going to pay dividends. So that's the good news I got. And the other good news is it was an awesome short week. I got to go bow fishing last weekend and I got a carp. So that was fun.
So there's still a little bit of outdoorsman in your white collar.
When I can find it. And who I am, I'm Bucky Beeman, commercial real estate agent in Rochester, Minnesota, partner at a real estate firm called Realty Growth Incorporated. I'm extremely passionate about marketing, extremely passionate about brand building, and love the internet and what it's done for my business and life.
Yeah, and I am Dallas McLaughlin, digital marketing strategist at a Scottsdale ad agency. It is called the James Agency. A lot of cool local clients, and looking to brainstorm some cool digital stuff here with Bucky. So let's jump to the
news, Dallas.
What's up?
What's your good news?
Well, I guess I don't know if it's necessarily good news. Definitely not bad news. It was cool though to hear people when I went back to the office after our last little show talk about how cool it was. It's weird. I think nowadays people are really silent with their online praise, but they'll definitely tell you in person, which is cool. So it seems like if I were to share this link, nobody would like comment on it or anything. But in the office, people are like, man, I saw that show you did. It's really cool. You know, like, how did you find the time? And I think that was the biggest kind of lesson to everybody there was we just made the time. We just did it. Like, I think agency culture, everybody's just maxed out. Like, everybody's out of time. Everybody's working long hours all day, every day to get the next project out. You just have to carve that time out. And I think that was kind of the lesson then, and it will be with all of these. Where you and I are both also, just like everybody else, extremely maxed out on time, both with our professional life and personal lives, and we're just making it happen.
Great example of that is right now I've been spending a lot of time at a church that I've got involved with here in Rochester, and we just got done with a meeting, and I talked to the pastor here, one of the pastors. I'm like, hey, can I go jump in one of the rooms and do a phone call real quick with Dallas? So here I am. I'm at the church.
Awesome. Yeah. Similar. We've my girlfriend and I have been with the kids all day. We've been doing a bunch of family stuff, and I was like, hey, take the kids to McDonald's Playland or something for an hour. You can even watch the show if you're bored, and then come back home and we'll continue on with the rest of our day.
All right, so let's get into it.
Yeah, so I was talking to Bucky a little bit before we went live here, and I'm working on trying to close a residential real estate firm here locally in Scottsdale. So some of the questions I'm going to use for him is actually going to pay off for me as I go through this process of trying to close this pretty large client. So one of the things I've been trying to figure out throughout the last week and a half is, though they're more residential focused, it will probably be similar to what you're seeing. So from a commercial side, like what you're involved in, what does the general lead generation look like for you? Like, if you, Bucky Beeman, want to go out and create leads for yourself that turn into tours and turn into people signing leases, what does that look like for you? What are you doing? Actually, let's do it a two-part question. Let's say, what is everybody else doing in commercial real estate to generate leads in the traditional sense, and how they've probably been doing it for 30 years, 50 years, longer than that? And now what are you doing involving digital to generate leads that is maybe different from them?
Right. So it'll be kind of a long answer. When I started in the business, what everybody was doing is what they still are doing in the most cases is real estate signs, advertising in paper publications if it pays off, getting their listings out there on some of the major sites, but not all of the sites, and trying to slowly build a presence online in small cases when I got into the business. What I did at that point in the business, because I found the opportunity, was I went into sites that had a lot of abilities to add additional pieces of content like video and PDFs and just make my listings look better than anybody else's in the commercial world. And it generated a ton of leads very quickly. And then what happened is now, today, my competition has come onto these internet websites. And so I am no longer the only fish in the sea, if you will, on these major websites that have inventory of listings. And so I have to think outside the box of how I'm going to continually generate leads. That does generate leads, being on those websites in the commercial world. LoopNet's a very popular one. Wherever you're at, type in LoopNet commercial real estate, or type in commercial real estate in your city. LoopNet will pop up as number one. I was the man on that website. Now everybody is the man on that website in our market. And so what I'm doing is I'm personally trying to get out there on other platforms to be relevant, be a part of conversations. And now more importantly than ever, I'm trying to turn my listings into a piece of content. So often you get a listing, you put up the flyer, you put it out there, but you don't actually treat that listing as a true piece of content and create micro pieces of content and really share about that listing in ways that it hasn't been shared about. So for example, some of my ideas is, could I have an HVAC contractor walk through one of our big buildings and share about the in-depth details of the HVAC system? That turns into a piece of content sharing about the systems of a building, but also turns into a piece of content pushing the listing further to let people know about the listing. So how do you make your listings pieces of content? And then going further into some of this strategy, it would be, how do you generate relationships with potential buyers and tenants and people, you don't even have to label them, people that are going to lead to business online. And that's what I'm trying to do strategically through being active on multiple platforms. I have to step up my internet game in order to continually be relevant and try to be a leader within our market.
Cool. So one of the things I battle with in the digital sense when I'm trying to generate leads, because I've done a lot of work in real estate lead generation for residents, trying to generate home tours, things like that. The thing that I always struggle with is generating quality leads. Volume's never an issue because there's so many people searching all the time. I would imagine that's even 10 times a bigger issue in commercial, because what do you do to figure out that somebody's actually a quality business lead when they reach out to you and it's not just some guy? I mean, you and I both have seen it as we were and still are involved in the startup culture. There's a lot of people that like to talk a lot about what they're going to do. They talk really big, huge ideas. They'll even go through the steps of touring properties, I would imagine, and office spaces, but then nothing happens. So how do you, as the person that has to take that time with no cost, like you can't really charge for that tour, how do you protect your own time but still have the volume of leads enough to convert those over to actual leases?
So I think what you have to do as the ad agency trying to create good leads for this company is you need to make sure that they have the understanding. Their process of vetting leads is extremely important, because you're going to bring them the quality. You have no issue in bringing them leads, Dallas, with the way your mind works. You're going to generate leads, but it's so important that they have a vetting process and a step-by-step way of understanding if it's a good lead or not. And that's their responsibility. I don't think necessarily it's the ad agency's responsibility, but I think the agency, the marketing agency, ad agency, however you want to look at it, what they need to be doing is saying, have you guys ever considered, so you're selling luxury homes over $1 million. There's certain websites that it's a community of people that their net worth is X and they're involved in Fortune 500 companies. Have you ever found a way to target them and market your listings to them? And because your mind works the way it does of understanding these communities exist online, these places exist, you can take their listings, their content, their company to places they never have been, that naturally will create good leads. And they don't necessarily understand that's even possible or how to do it with where their time is being spent, because it's like, how am I going to get into that community and bust through the noise? Like, I got to be showing properties and I got to be getting it out there and vetting the people. Like, I don't even have time for that. So that's where you could really help them create good leads, I could see.
Yeah. Some of the stuff that I've kind of kicked around in my own ideas or in my own head. You know, there's in it, like you just said, the real estate agents, in this case residential, don't know what's available. So a lot of it is in the education. So when I say something like how you kind of just outlined, I can go to this third-party website, where people, you know, maybe it's inc.com and it's a specific section in inc.com. I can place banner ads around that because that's where these people are browsing in their natural habitat. And what we know is when consumers are comfortable, when they're in a place where they're relaxed and their mind's kind of turned off, and they see an ad that actually matches their interests and what they're looking at right now, we know that they're much more likely to click on that and be much more open to what that ad is about than if they're on ESPN.com looking at baseball scores and see that very same ad, because the interests aren't aligning at that perfect time. It's still the same person, but the context of the situation is completely different. And so some of the things I'm looking at doing with them is placing extremely targeted ads that are not only based on location of the user, it's on whether they're in like the top 10% of national income or income in the state, job titles, seniority at the company that they're at. There's just hundreds and hundreds of interests you can continue to layer on. One of the issues I'm seeing when I describe this, so this is kind of the balance I have to strike every time I go into the situation, is, to me, it sounds very simple. I have to find ways to break it down so, yeah, the layman can understand it. So I think when people go to an ad agency and they get their monthly report of what their pay-per-click did or their digital marketing did, they want to see that they served 3 million impressions in the last 30 days, when really I would rather serve 1,000 impressions to the right people and have 100 of those turn into leads. I mean, it's just so easy to just blanket the city in impressions, but they just don't do anything for you. It's just a huge waste of money. So part of it is educating and also kind of reversing that mindset of print and radio and TV, where they are just selling impressions. If you call up a TV station and say, hey, I want to serve 1 million impressions, they're going to say, great, let's run your ad during the 8 o'clock news tonight. You'll serve 1 million impressions. But what's the point if those aren't the right people? So that's one of the things I'm trying to narrow down for them and figure out a way to make it make sense to them.
So let me ask you this. They're selling $1 million property. They have a commission involved with selling that property. Do you think that a listing, specifically a listing, should also have a marketing budget applied to it as an individual listing? The brokerage is obviously coming to you and saying, hey, help us market our brokerage better, get our name out there, help us generate leads. I'm talking a specific listing that the only way they drive revenue is if they sell it. If they don't sell it, they don't drive revenue. Should each listing at a certain level, or just in general, have a marketing plan for itself? If I'm selling $1 million yacht, you would understand where you could potentially market that, versus if I'm selling $1 million home, versus if I'm selling $1 million commercial building in Arizona. Should they have marketing plans for each individual listing that's specific to the listing? Would that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be a great strategy. It kind of goes back to what you were saying about having the HVAC guy do a run through the house and describe the system that's going on. If you could actually create content around that listing, if you could say, you know, this property has this irrigation system and it's better than the neighbors because the neighbors have this one and it's not quite as good. You have the architecture shingling on the roof versus the other type of roof. Like, if you could actually build content around what that individual property is, yeah, it's very one-to-one versus just putting a listing out. But I think what they'll find is not only will there be more interest during the research phase, they'll actually see much higher quality leads, because they aren't going to waste their time just going through a house if it's not right for them. They'll know through the content they're creating if that's the right place for them. They'll know exactly. I mean, I just bought a house in February, and it was really weird. It was really difficult for me to go to all of these sites and look at homes, because they're all just photos, and it's like every photo is the corner of a bedroom. So it's like I can't tell what the story is with this house, because all I'm seeing is a bunch of corners of bedrooms, because you can only take a photo from so many angles in an empty house. Like, you have to be either in that house, which then has the time commitment of touring all these people through the house, or if you could do something like a 3D walkthrough, or do a whole write-up about what the neighborhood's like, what the education system's like, what the people in the neighborhood are like, what the best restaurants nearby are, and actually build some sort of downloadable ebook about that, that would be great. You would vet me right away. I would know if that's the place for me or not. I wouldn't have to pick up the phone and call you. But if I did pick up the phone, you basically have me pretty close to a sale already, because I know what that house has in it and I want it.
And then also, this is my opinion, and some people might disagree. Some people are like, well, look, I just showed Dallas the entire house, the inside and outs, and he just made up in his mind that it doesn't fit him, so he's going to go somewhere else, and I never got the lead anyways. I should have just kept it kind of vague, and so hopefully he calls me. Again, the volume of leads is not the issue. You can get so many flipping leads thanks to the internet. It's ridiculous. It's the quality of leads. So I would counter that thought with saying, hey, look, all of the stuff we shared has proven to Dallas that we are the best firm to work with because we care to share all the details. And so Dallas is going to call us and be like, look, I didn't find the property that I liked, and I looked at a couple others, but you guys know your stuff and you care. And you really showed me what this house is made of. And because of that, I want to work with you because you're not going to sell me something I don't want. You're not a salesman. What you are is an advisor. And that's where I'm trying to move our firm. We want to be advisors. We don't want to be, and frankly, agents. Like, I think you look at real estate in general and you think used car salesman, right? Sell, 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 sell. Ugh. We shouldn't be that. And thanks to the internet, I think it's working out those people sell, 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 because the consumers are wanting people that provide more value than just, hey, I opened the door for you, now you got to buy it with us. So.
Yeah, and I wish I would have thought up that whole like ebook idea back when I was buying a house, because yeah, just like you said, that might make me pass on a lot of houses and not pick up the phone to call those agents. But if I find value in that ebook or whatever document they put together about the house, I'm more likely to call that agent and say, hey, this one didn't work out. This document was so awesome though. Do you have more for houses that are maybe similar? And
you're pretty qualified. You are the type of lead I want. You're the guy that cares about the details. I don't want the guy that doesn't care about the details, that doesn't care about the relationship, the person that just says, open the door for me. All right, have a nice day. It didn't fit me. I don't want that person. That's the, don't send that lead.
Yeah, and I think you've probably read it everywhere too, because I've seen it just in passing on random news stories on like Mashable and the Next Web and stuff about how everybody always takes these like end of world stances when they write articles because they want page views. That's just the game. But you see people writing about, is this the end of real estate agents? Because the internet has cut out most of the need for agents. Like, you can see everything about the house, you can research the neighborhood. It's becoming much easier for owners to sell their own home. Again, we're talking residential here, but it's becoming easier for owners to sell their own house because of the internet. They can post their own listings. So yeah, it's kind of like when the music industry was dying. They killed themselves because they didn't find a way to adapt to the year that we live in. And you kind of see the same thing happening with real estate agents. They're squeezing so tight that they're not figuring out how to live in this new ecosystem that's just developing on its own.
And I think the blog post that just came to my mind is, it might be the death of agency, but it's the birth of advisors. And advisors to me are individuals that are really going to advise somebody to buy a property, to lease a property in a way that the value they're sharing is not just opening the door anymore, because the internet has taken out the inventory search. Back in the day when the internet wasn't there and the MLS was all in a book, you had to contact a real estate agent. You no longer have to do that. You could search all night and identify a bunch of properties. You want to team up with somebody that really cares about what does Dallas and his family want, and is it the right fit for them? That's an advisor to you. Just like a financial advisor, I think real estate advisors, that's the beginning of it.
Yeah, I would say another parallel to that is if you think about travel agents, used to be the big deal. Book cruises, book the hotels, book the flights. You'd go to like a AAA office and you'd plan your vacation. The internet has all but wiped all of that out. But now we're seeing this huge uprising of travel bloggers who are going on all these trips themselves to then feed their own personal research back into the hive mind of the internet. and they're building that trust and the authority and the relevancy of, I've done it. These are the restaurants I ate at. These ones weren't good. These ones were. If I were to come back, I would try this. So people are going to these websites to plan their own trips. But those people who maybe were a travel agent 20 years ago, now they're making that revenue back up through monetizing their own website, their own YouTube videos. They're doing this. They're taking money for this influencer trend going on right now to review properties. That's a popular thing we use as an ad agency. We have a lot of brand new hotels that are opening up as our clients, and almost, it's almost one of those things that's now just a checkbox. Like, okay, hire 10 bloggers to come opening day. They stay for free. We fly them out. They give us a review of the property to all of their following. It's almost become as normal as placing a billboard for us. So those travel agents that fought so hard to still sit in their cubicle to plan vacations could have been on this early wave of, let me adopt the internet. I can actually go on these trips and still make that money plus more, and I'm traveling for free. But they fought it and they lost, and now they're probably real estate agents. I don't know.
So I guess coming back to your company that you're trying to pitch and hopefully win their business, and I hope you do, I think you have to help them understand the internet in the day and age of ads and how that can benefit them, and how they have pieces of content in their hopper. They just need to figure out how to get somebody like you to be able to use these pieces of content and allow it to go out there further than it ever has been. And that's a tough thing, because what that requires is money, and they're only making X amount of dollars, and this new money that they have to inject into a listing to help it get further, it's not in their ways of doing it in the past. So they have to figure out how to allocate dollars to an ad agency. The ad agency has to figure out how to take their listings, take their content, and get it deeper and in the correct places online. That leads to results, I think.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I preach to them. One of the challenges, not necessarily in this case, but in my experience when I go down that path, pitching that to clients, what they want to see, and again, they're stuck in that mindset of this is how they built their business 20 years ago, this is what they want to keep doing, is they want to know, I write this blog post, it made me X amount of dollars, or it cost me X amount of dollars. It doesn't work out like that anymore, because there's so many pieces that are involved. There's so many touch points for the consumer between when they first hit your business to when they actually hand a dollar bill to your business, that you just can't attribute that money to any one specific place. But if a piece of that is missing, they may not get to that end piece, and then you definitely never know. So a lot of these businesses look at things like their social media content calendar or their social media strategy or whatever as expenses, and they're not looking at it as an extremely valuable piece of taking somebody from prospect to conversion or signing a lease or whatever it is. So
it's an investment. It's an investment. It's an investment. It's not an expense, people. Social media is an investment, and that's what you have to recognize. And there's a return on that investment if it's done correctly.
Yeah, it's crazy. I get that too. I get people that'll come in and say, "Oh no, we tried social media. It didn't work. We paid somebody all this money to do it. It didn't work." And it's like, but that doesn't mean social media is broken. It doesn't mean social media doesn't work for your business. It means the strategy you had was probably wrong. Try something else. Here's what I recommend trying. Or maybe the strategy was right, they just didn't have the proper tracking or any type of measurement in place. I see that a lot too, is maybe it was awesome, just at the end of the month, when they're looking at where their revenue came from, they can't tie it back to a tweet they sent. It just doesn't work like that anymore, and businesses are afraid to put money there, but they'll put money in billboards all day, which is the exact same scenario. You can't say, somebody drove by my billboard and gave me this amount of money, but they're comfortable with that. So it's
and what I would say to those businesses is there's young companies that are going to take your position unless you start to invest. And you need to be investing in this new way of thinking, in this new way of selling, in this new ad approach, and you will see the return. It's not necessarily as easy always to see the return tomorrow, but look, you've invested in stocks before, and there were some that didn't work. Same thing happens in digital media, in social, in the internet. And you have to find the ones that do work, the system that does work, the partner that does work. It will work. It's just the way it works.
Yeah, I think guys like you and me who I mean, I always say that, like, so I'm 30. People my age grew up in the perfect time period, because I remember how it used to be. I remember you used to have to pull out the yellow pages to find somebody, or you had to ask a neighbor or somebody. And then I was there as the transition happened to online, so I got to see it. And for me, it's really easy to understand. For people that are older than me that ignored all of that until it was all here, they didn't see it. To them, it happened overnight, and they don't understand it, and they want it to just go away. To people younger than me, that's all they know. So they are completely oblivious to radio and TV and everything like that. It doesn't exist to them. So people are paying huge amounts of dollars to reach people. They just can't, they aren't going to get to them unless they go online to where these people are.
And that's the thing of, you went through that time of Yellow Book. You could look on Yellow Book. Think way back to the time Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this. There was the radio. And so radio is where you got your advertising, right? And then they had a couple channels and things like that. Well, guess what? On this phone right here, there's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn. And in all of those, there's advertising trying to pull me and trying to sell me, because marketers go into that stuff and ruin it. And they're trying to sell me. And I am now like dodging it, right? It's like, I don't want to look at that. You better really work. You better really put out a good piece of engaging content. You better really try to build a relationship with me if you want to have me be a customer to you, because now I'm getting hit upside the face more than I ever have been with ads. It's no longer just the radio, just a couple channels, just billboards. It's coming at me full force. So you better be strategic in how the heck you're trying to sell me something. And I don't care if you're trying to sell a house, you as an advisor, a commercial building, a flipping membership to some gym, whatever it is, you got to invest in being strategic in that.
Yeah. So I would say, to kind of go back to commercial and an ad agency and this client we're working on. So as a commercial agent like yourself, and you work for a commercial real estate firm, what are things like right now? Let's say tomorrow you guys decide you need a new website, or you need to do a TV commercial or whatever. What do you guys do today? Do you call individual people to do those things? Or is it common to have a full service agency behind you to kind of just be your bat phone whenever you need something?
Yeah, today I think, and for the most part, it's not an agency behind it. It's you go to Google and you try to figure out a service provider that does it. I think long term, the marriage of an ad agency and a real estate agency is going to be extremely, extremely important. And that's part of the reason I've tweeted Gary Vaynerchuk directly multiple times that I want to talk to him, because the firm and the companies that figure that out, they are going to create a place in this world of being the lead advisors, the lead agencies, because they're recognizing the shift and the internet revolution that is going to change the process of how advisors sell buildings or houses or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, so I guess I would say there's traditional full service agencies are also in a bit of a tough spot, because I mean, I see it coming. It's one of those things that's still so early. Most people are blind to it, but it's one of those things where I just feel the intuition that I know that this is what's happening and where things are going to go. But what's happening is full service agencies are actually being replaced by what's called creative agencies. So instead of going to one place like a full service agency who says they are the best at everything, somebody who needs a TV commercial or video production goes to a video production place. And then they send their billboards to another media buying company. And then they send their website to a website company. The idea is a full service agency can't possibly be the best at everything. A creative agency, when that's all they do, like I've seen Snapchat only agencies.
I didn't realize that. That's smart.
And Instagram only agencies. So if you come to a full service agency and we tell you that we're the best at it, the clients are kind of wising up to that, is how can you be better than the guys that only do this every day, all day? And there's a lot to that. That's very true. I think like being in the full service agency, I can see that when it comes to having a full brand cohesive marketing experience across all channels, that's where a full service agency is key, almost kind of the umbrella over everything else. If you just want an Instagram execution or just want to activate on Twitter, then a creative agency makes sense. So I see it, yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to figure it out. Either there's a parent agency that kind of acts as outlining the entire marketing strategy, and then they work with smaller creative agencies. I haven't quite figured it out, but there's something that's changing also in our industry. And like, that's my biggest fear. Like I always talk about like how everybody's ignored technology. So I'm trying to figure it out before everybody else.
So I related to commercial real estate. I just got done saying the people that are going to last are advisors. There needs to be digital advisors, right? So I go to the advisor group as a firm and say, connect me with the best of the best to get my firm, because you can't tell me that out of Phoenix you got the best Instagram guy and the best Snapchat guy. And no, but you're the firm that says we know those people and we work along with those people as advisors to connect them with your firm, your company, your brand, to make sure that you're doing it across all platforms the best. And ultimately, I think it leads to more sales and it leads to building a business and all those great things. One thing that came to my mind this last week since our last phone call was I think there's a day and age inside a real estate company that there has to be digital sales advisors. So I'm a physical sales advisor. There's going to be people that are just digital sales advisors that are working the internet to try to get transactions done for the firm. And I think that day is coming sooner than later, because of the way the sales process can be done via Google Hangout, via DocuSign sending it to you, via how I connected with Dallas through Instagram, because I found out his interest was buying senior housing complexes across the country. And I happened to send him a direct message that led to getting all those other things done. Oh yeah, and we did it all with this computer as I sat in a coffee shop. So that it's shifting. Back to your point, I think that's what you'll see a change in is digital advisors for plugging them in with the right mediums, right platforms.
Yeah, I agree. And like I said, that's still what I'm trying to figure that out, because it seems like as a full service agency, I don't want to say we, because it's happening to everybody, but every full service agency, when someone comes to them, and not every client of ours is a full service client. Some of us come to us just because they want a website. But the truth is, when they come to us as a full service agency to buy a website, they're still paying for the digital guy to sit there and do pay-per-click for someone else. They're still paying for our PR department to have the lights on in their office. They're still paying for all this overhead. They're just only using the website guy with their money. So that the cost of that website is so much more than what it would be if you went to just a website guy. And I think for a long time, agencies were skeptical of, or not agencies, but consumers and clients were skeptical of just going to the guy because they didn't know the reliability to the guy, or if the guy was going to bail out halfway through the project. But I think these 4 or 5 person shops that are popping up, they're kind of finding that in between a full service agency and the overhead that falls on the clients, and the output and reliability and expertise that they need to get just their project done. So yeah, maybe there's a full service agency that figures out the overall branding and multi-channel kind of activation of everything. But the actual doers of the individual pieces are the creative agencies underneath them. That's kind of an interesting idea I'll have to pay more attention to.
Yeah, for sure. Couple questions I got for you. So one is, let's say I get this listing, and let's say the listing is for $700,000, and it's a vacant building that's been vacant for many, many years, and 5 years to be exact. And I get the listing, and I go to the person that's selling the property, and I say, look, you need to invest in this marketing plan that we've come up with a digital-minded person, because it hasn't worked the standard way of selling it, and we believe that we need to digitally get the word out there even more. Just as much as a firm, we need to work on the things that matter that the other firms haven't been able to accomplish. One is, do you think people that are selling buildings would invest in the right plan? So their building's been sitting vacant for 5 years. Automatically, I think it's costing them money, and it just makes sense that they invest in a marketing plan. And then two, in our neck of the woods, which you're familiar with, Southeast Minnesota, is there a way on digital with a monthly budget of $100 to $200 a month? If the content is created, forget about the cool creative. The cool creative is there, that's done. If the content is created, is there a way to get it out to the right people on a $200 a month budget, the listing, to lead to a potential sale? And if so, what platforms is your thought?
So with a budget of only $200 a month, you'd have to get extremely targeted before you start with that money about who you're going to target. And I would say even down to the company name, like if you can, or the person's name, if you have a marketing plan for this building and you're like, I don't know exactly what you're working on, but let's say you want to fill half of it with a hobby shop and the other half with a music shop or something along, I don't know what you've got going on.
We want to sell it. So we just want to flat out find a new user. So it could be converted to senior housing. It could be converted to apartments. It could be converted to a school, as it is a school today. So we could target the specific uses within it.
So I did a similar one, actually kind of the reverse of that. So I was working with a client who had one location already, and they needed to find another location, and they needed to figure out another neighborhood for it, which I had to figure out, as well as a neighborhood that would support that footprint in an already existing building. And what we ended up doing is we found a Sears that was going bankrupt because it was the perfect footprint. So we talked to the buyers at Sears about when they liquidate, or the owner of that building, how we can move this new company into their new location. So what I would do is look at who would fill that footprint, who makes sense to go in that building as far as what their business names are, or the people that are pushing the button on signing that new lease. And I would place ads directly to them. So you can actually put ads directly in a single person's Facebook newsfeed, or you can target pretty closely on LinkedIn if you know who that person is. If you know the CEO of X company could be interested in moving to Rochester, they already have a location in Minneapolis, and now they want to move to Rochester, or maybe it's not even in their mind yet, but you want to plant that seed, I would place ads directly in their feeds by targeting the 32-year-old CEO of XYZ Corporation with an ad that pulls out to a landing page that is this marketing plan that says, we have this vacant building. The perfect businesses for this building are these 5. One of them happens to be the name of that guy's building. So he thinks he's just getting this by chance. He thinks there's some mystical force working to his advantage, but really you're pulling him through this sales funnel. And then of course at the bottom of that landing page, single website landing page, or single page website, is a contact form. Schedule your tour today. So if you can place that ad to those, say you target 10 people that you think might want to move into that building, and you get 2 of them to become leads, then yeah, you can put them against each other and try to sell them against each other.
And that is called the digital CRE collision. I mean, man, what better way? You just got to figure out how to do it, and that's why I love talking to you, because where there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, I've done stuff just screwing around with friends where I found out a friend had a super weird hobby, and I started placing newsfeed ads in his Facebook about this super strange hobby, to the point where he was even like, oh my God, I was at home and I saw the weirdest ad. Like, how did anybody know that about me? And I was just sitting there like, yeah, I don't know, that's crazy. But because I knew his age, I knew where he worked, I knew the city he lived in. And as you add in all these interests and behaviors and demographics, Facebook keeps cutting people out, and it's like, okay, your audience size is 100. Now it's down to 35. Eventually it gets down to 1, and you know that's your guy, and you place the ad. So it costs you 5 cents to do it because there's no more competition for that interest set. So, I mean, it's the same way, like I've told you, I got my job at the James Agency. I just placed ads on their company interests, their company name, and they found it. They came out to a landing page. It had a contact form to actually schedule an interview with me versus me wanting to schedule an interview with them. And it worked. So it's just repeating that process over and over again.
Awesome. So I'm going to try to pitch to these people to get them to invest in a marketing plan, and I'm going to run that marketing plan by you. The key is to execute on that marketing plan, of course, but I think and I believe and I have faith that we can with the group that I'm working with in Minnesota, in Rochester, and I don't know anywhere else it's being done. So I'm excited to see how we can get this in action.
Yeah, and like I was saying, I would find 5 to 10 people that are already doing something similar or who might want to do that. I'd write their names down, their companies, and we'd figure out how to place ads to get their interest.
And we sell a big building that has been vacant, and the other 2 firms couldn't do it.
And we do it on like a $2.50 ad spend. So it works.
And I never meet the buyer. I do it all digitally, and they just get the keys picked up in a lockbox someday.
Right. We'll fly them over on a drone or something.
Yeah. Amen. All right. Well, you mentioned the last phone call was 50 minutes, and I think we're going to try to trim the calls down to around 30 if we can. Yep. What do you think we sit right now?
We're at, looks like about 44. So.
That's awesome. All right. So let's wrap. Unless you have any questions for me, I don't have any questions for you. And I think we could get in the habit of wrapping it up with maybe what we're seeing on the internet since our last phone call, anything's just kind of worth mentioning, and maybe an interest of a platform or tool that we have that we want to learn more about or that we're learning about.
Okay. I guess I didn't have anything prepared for that, but what I would say is, okay, don't take this the wrong way. I'm not as huge of a nerd as this sounds, but just yesterday I was reading all this hype about this Pokemon Go thing, right? So my deal is I have a 4-year-old, so I have a total like scapegoat, like, no, it's cool, I can download Pokemon Go, I got a 4-year-old, he loves it. But to me, I'm super interested in the technology and this huge hype train that everybody's on for this augmented reality. And not only that, there's a couple interesting things. It's the business model of it's completely free. The way they're making revenue is just through small in-game microtransactions. And I read that they're making $1.7 million a day in revenue for a free game. And what I would say is once they have all of these millions and millions and millions of users and eyeballs on this app, on this platform, obviously they're going to want to monetize it some other way through placed ads. So the first one to get on that first public ad exchange on this Pokemon Go game, if they go that route, is going to have huge leverage. There's going to be tons of inventory at no cost with a super narrow, nerdy, geek type demographic, which is extremely valuable for businesses. So it's something out there that I would pay major attention to.
So while you're on that topic, on my Snapchat, which if anybody listens to this tonight, I think it won't run out for the next however many 2 hours. But I'm literally sitting at a picnic table downtown, and I've just like caught a glimpse of this Pokemon thing on Facebook. I didn't dig into it. And I'm like watching these guys, and they're walking around, and they're like talking, and they're like, oh yeah, I just got that. Oh yeah, I just got that. And they're right in front of me. I'm like, what is going on? So on my Snapchat, I'm like, we are all turning into robots. And I might be talking to my phone on Snapchat. These guys are playing a game over here, and I videotaped them on my Snapchat. And then there was a group of like 30 people that got together downtown, and there's a picture of it. And a friend of mine, James, we both know James, he made the comment, he goes, well, you lost out on it. You should have had the Pokemon party at your father's burger joint, Snappy Stop, and sold some burgers. And I'm like, why didn't I think of that? That would have been brilliant. So even on a micro level, there's ways of how to use this momentum for your local business, and the people that figure that out. I mean, you're thinking macro, I'm thinking micro. I just want to sell some more burgers at Snappy Stop. Let's have a couple Pokemon parties over there.
Yeah, I've seen that. So the way it works is high traffic areas become these hotspots that are rewarding to go to in the game. So what we're seeing is like bars on their little A-frame out front will say, come in here, we're on this team in Pokemon Go. If you're on this team, you're one of us and you get 15% off. Or if you perform this action when you're in the bar, which then signals other Pokemon Go players to come to that bar because you've got some special thing going on in the app, if you do that, we'll give you a free meal because you just brought 15 more people to our business. So yeah, I've actually seen, Amy and I went out last night and we saw at least 2 or 3 businesses that had something going on. Actually went to a Bahama Bucks, which is like a smoothie or a shaved ice place around here, and they had a tip jar, and you tipped based on what team you were on in this game. So, I mean, they're using the tip jar, but everybody's on it right now.
Oh my gosh. All right. So I got to get to work on that this week. I'm trying to sell buildings. All right. And one thing I noticed, Snapchat updated their memories function. So you can now save your memories, which is awesome for the fact that I've dealt with it with my mom. My mom's like, oh, I watched your story, but I missed that. And like, now I can save it. And how I'm going to use it as well is saving my memories on Snapchat, my daily vlogs of Snapchatting, is using that content to put it into a part of my YouTube that I really plan on doubling down on. And I've said it already this year, but I am going to do it. I'm getting the right setup to do so. So memories is a unique function. And then the other thing I've looked into, and maybe you know this tool, is Percolate. So Percolate, I had a phone call with them, and it's a tool that Gary Vaynerchuk mentioned to create campaigns, and then these campaigns you can use across multiple platforms, Facebook, Instagram, and some of the biggest brands that he represents are using Percolate, and it just makes me think, how can a real estate firm use a tool like Percolate to really build their brand and push their listings and come up with campaigns? Again, in my mind, I'm trying to merge a ad agency with a commercial real estate firm. I think ultimately I just need to go to an ad agency at some point and then just team up with them instead of me trying to create it. But the more I understand about it, the more I'll be able to use it in my profession. So those are the 2 things, memories on Snapchat and this unique tool called Percolate that I dug into.
Yeah, and put all of those together, do a Snapchat Pokemon Go filter for Snappy Stop. People will be coming to Snappy Stop, Snapchatting with the Snapchat, Snappy Stop, Pokemon Go filter. There you go.
All right. Oh, all right, man. I got to get to work, so let's cut it off there.
All right. We'll do this again in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. Thanks, Dallas.
Yeah. See ya.